Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining another episode of What Drives You. And I have a really dear old friend and old customer, Mr. Randy Rahe, on the line today. Hey, Randy.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you again you're an hour ahead, so syncing this up was a little trickier. I try and do them, when it's convenient for you. I did take the day off today, so that kind of worked out in our favor. But so good to see you. I know we talked a little bit last week, and you were like, "Why would you want to talk to me?" And the reason
Yeah,
is you have a lot of experiences that are pretty cool and unique. So thanks for joining.
my pleasure. Hope I don't bore you to tears.
We will get some nuggets out of it, I promise. And one thing that we've been doing, probably the last 6 months, Randy, is I take these full episodes, whether they're 30 minutes or an hour, however long they go, and then I chop them up into YouTube shorts. And on the one hand, it's kind of frustrating to me that we can take this whole hour or whatever it ends up being and condense it down to 30-second sound bites. But what's cool about the AI that we use to take it out is it really takes the good nuggets out. And so anything that you and I might find interesting that our guests might not, kind of gets chopped out. So it's been fun to use some AI. And I mean, it's a hot topic in the world, but in this sense, it's a very time saver and it's very helpful because it just gets the relevant, conversation out there. So it's kind of cool. So I want to talk about, first of all, how you're in Florida, but you and I met. I had heard about you, a little background as to how Randy and I met. You were a customer of mine at my day job, my credit union direct lending. But I had heard about you for some years before with a friend of mine, Jim Batista, when you guys were opening up, ironically, and this is kind of how worlds collide here, a used car dealership in Chicago for a TV show. So tell us about that experience, and then we'll kind of back into your whole career from the beginning.
Well, I don't remember much, honestly, about the television show, um, but I was involved in kind of setting up the back side of it, the guts at the dealership and making sure that it was uh, something that was worth talking about. Um, I can't recall if Marcus was involved in that one or not, and likely he was, uh, uh, because he was in Chicago, still in Chicago at the same time that I was. But yeah, that whole adventure was was very interesting, and I had a background in media, so I knew a little bit about what was going to transpire. So it was good. It was good. I wish I had more details on it. I'm old and my memory is
No, I what's funny is in my recollection, so maybe this will prompt some things, is that well, first of all, it was right next to the neighborhood I grew up, and literally right down the street from one of my first jobs at Myers Bakery, right there on Waukegan Road. But when it was launched, you guys had bought kind of a struggling luxury independent used car dealership right down the street from my house and my business. But you were trying to do two things at once. You were trying to start kind of the new, maybe this is a way too high in the sky in the pie, but a new CarMax or a new Carvana model and do the TV show. So it was kind of this weird dynamic of, hey, we really want to try and do a business, and I don't, because John Gavin was involved there, but I can't remember if you guys got 10 of them up and running, 20 of them. I maybe that's kind of where we can kind of segue into a little bit.
there were a bunch of those CarMax kind of dealerships, not only in Chicago but several. They were luxury dealers. Uh, but boy, that's a long time. That was a long time ago.
Were they called? If I'm drawing a, I don't know if this is right.
CarMax.
Auto match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is
Um,
kind of if we were with Auto Nation, Marcus and I had both been at Auto Nation, so that Auto Match is kind of an offshoot of sorts.
yeah, a name recognition. So let's back. You mentioned advertising. Let's kind of back up there because you got some pretty cool stories there. I know. Was it radio or billboards you were in?
I was in the radio business for many, 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 many years.
Okay.
And um, from soup to nuts, I started on the air when I was in school, when I was in college, and then just kind of went from there to go to one market and have some success. And the company I was with would send me to another market that was struggling. And, fortunately, my wife was a good sport, and she was up for the traveling and changing of cities and all that. But we were very, very fortunate in that industry to end up with some really good really good radio stations. And met a lot of great people along the way that are still, involved in many of those stations, and some of them in pretty high positions in like Clear Channel now and some of those places. But it was very good. It was like a roadmap. I started out in college in Independence, Kansas, and then Warrensburg, Missouri, and from there we went to Springfield, Missouri, and I was with KTTS for several years. I was on the air to start, but then it didn't take me long to figure out that the guys driving the nice cars were in sales. So I got into sales, and that worked out very well. A guy that I worked with in uh, Springfield uh, went to work at a radio station at Lake of the Ozarks, and they were looking for a sales manager, and he called me. And as luck would have it, the station was owned by Al Sykes. And Al Sykes, I don't know if you are familiar with Al at all. He was chairman of the FCC for many years.
Wow.
And he was an attorney in Springfield, and I got tied in with Al, and who was a wonderful guy to me. And when he was buying radio stations, and he would ask me if I'd like to do, you know, the new station here, or the new station in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, or the new station in, Terre Haute, Indiana, or wherever it was that he was buying stations. And he had a guy he worked with named Mike Rice who had stations too. And basically, I just did the tour, and my wife was so kind and understanding. She understood this was what we were going to do, and so we kind of made the circuit. We went from Springfield, Missouri to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and from Cape Girardeau, Missouri to Terre Haute, Indiana, and from Terre Haute, Indiana to Columbus, Ohio, which we had great opportunity in Columbus, and really the guys we brought in really took advantage of it and built, what was once a legacy AM that had fallen on hard times, back to life. And the FM was really the first true top 40 station in Columbus, Ohio, and we did very well there. And the people that were on the air there went on to, really do some great things and are nationally known people. But it was a great run in the radio business. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Did you, Randy, a couple quick segues because I know we didn't talk about this. Did you run into at all in Springfield the Hershin family?
No,
They
no.
ran, they owned, they were from Chicago area and they bought down in Springfield their first foray into business down there was Mystery Cave or Marvel Cave, one of those famous
Yeah, Marble Cave. Yeah.
Marvel Cave. And then they bought Randy Silver Dollar City.
Oh, wow.
So they own all that stuff down there, but they were from Wilmette area up here in Chicago. So again, small world, didn't know if you cross tracks with them. But then,
Yeah, well, we certainly did business at Silver Dollar City.
yeah. And then the other family who I met through my church up here was the Rust family, RUST. That Rust Communications owns all the media, a lot of newspapers and radios and such. I don't know if the newspapers are still around, if we even have those anymore. But they were in Cape Girardeau. That's why I brought them up. They owned some stuff down in Cape Girardeau. So
Well, the Zimmers were big in Cape Girardeau in the media side. They had radio stations, and I think they're involved in one of the TV stations, and I think they were partners in a newspaper too. But the Zimmer family,
hmm.
were big down in Cape. I liked Cape Girardeau. It was, you don't plan your career on, going to Cape Girardeau, but my wife was from Missouri, and is from Missouri, and uh, it was a good run.
Yeah.
Uh, really enjoyed uh, Columbus a lot. We were in Columbus the longest, uh, but it's a great town and great city, and the station was right downtown, and it was pretty fun, pretty fun.
Well, they had that old show, the WKRP, and I know it wasn't Columbus, but Cincinnati, close enough.
Yeah,
Did you?
yeah.
One of my favorite stories you've shared with me before was, and so let's see if we can connect the dots here. So you're in college, you're a music minor. What was your major?
Communications.
Communications. Okay, so good fit. But you also played football. And tell us about that little football journey, because I think later in this radio career you cross a famous football family. So fill me in or fill our listeners in on that kind of. I know you had a time with the Cowboys, or at least some interaction. Then later you were a professional, or you had a business relationship with them too, a little bit.
Well, I was fortunate. Uh, I played football in high school, and then I was kind of a funky position player. I I was a quarterback in high school, and I wasn't going to be a quarterback in college because I over the one summer, we were rural and worked on the farm and that kind of stuff, and I went from about 180 pounds to 215 over one summer, and I wasn't going to be a quarterback, so I went to a junior college in Southeast Kansas and played tight end, and was going to be leaving there. I was going to the University of Kansas and as a tight end, and the coach got fired. So when that happens back then, I hadn't signed anything, so there wasn't an official letter for me to stay, and became clear to me that number one, they had tight ends. Number two, they really didn't have a need for me there at that time with the new coach. And that's fine. So I was very fortunate in that a guy that I'd met along the way knew somebody at the University of Central Missouri, which is outside of Kansas City, about 45 minutes. And it's a Division II school, and really good school. I mean, there's 13,000 students at
Wow.
University of Central Missouri, and it plays, I think, in the best Division II conference in the country, which is the MIAA, which is Northwest Missouri State, Northeast Missouri State, Pittsburgh State, Rolla. I mean, the names that you see in Division II in the top five all the time, and everybody was a player back then. I mean, there were a lot of guys that went, to the pros from those schools, and coaches that went on and did great things too. So I go to the University of Central Missouri, and the first thing they do is tell me I'm not going to be a tight end. And I said, okay, well, I've moved once. I'm here. I moved down here. I got to figure out what's going on. And I played defensive end there, and it worked out really nice because they played a five, and the defensive end there basically wasn't in a stance, was upright and flexed and all that kind of stuff. So basically, you were an outside linebacker of sorts. And so I played there, and got the opportunity at that point. I got seen by somebody, and I wasn't great, but I flew around, I think, and it was okay. And asked me if I would consider uh, going to camp, doing, and they had a little, I guess it'd be mini camp now, but a little tryout thing down in Dallas, and I went down there for that. And it was clear to me I wasn't going to stay. And I mean, the people were really serious about it. And I had other things on my mind at that time. I had just gotten married, and how am I going to make a living, and so my head wasn't really in it. So I didn't stay very long, and then I went back to Springfield at that point. But yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. Met a lot of great people. Uh, I met I did business in Springfield at KTTS with the guy that owned Exotic Animal Paradise in uh, Springfield, Missouri, and his name was Pat Jones. And so I'm talking to Pat, and he was buying advertising from me. He says, and we talked about the Cowboys for a minute. He says, "Well, you might know my son." I said, "Yeah, really? Who's your son?" He said, "Well, he's Jerry Jones." Oh my God. His son was Jerry Jones, who, who owned the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was interesting. He had some good stories about Jerry, and I told him my so I'd met him, and it was just one of those all the way around moments, you know.
Full circle. Yeah, I forgot he owned that exotic animal place because we had talked about that when I go visit my friends in Lake of the Ozarks. We drove past it, or at least saw
Yeah,
a bunch of billboards for it down there.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So fast forward, how do you make the jump, Randy, from you got this, kind of really exciting and growing radio career. How do you jump from there to AutoNation, which was the industry I've been in for 33 years? How do you jump from there to that, and then kind of hook up with Marcus, who we'll talk a little bit about, and then he takes you on this other fun journey. It's almost like you had these three different careers that you just
Yeah.
kept reinventing yourself. It's pretty cool.
Well, I basically uh, with on the radio side, there are frequent changes in the radio business. I mean, people come and go, and new companies, and they were bought by the station I was at was bought by uh, a company, and it was clear they weren't going to keep me. And so, fortunate enough for me, I had made some uh, contacts in the car business, and out of the blue, then he just called and said, "Look, the people in car business, we think you can do this, and we'd like to, if you'd like to come work for us and learn the business, uh, we'd like to have you." And I did that and ended up, in the car business with the Napletons in Chicago, and worked for Eddie, and managed, really started in business development, but learned my way up to general manager of those dealerships in, uh, gosh, I can't remember the name of the place, but it's a suburb of Chicago, and was there. And then from there, I went on to, I met Marcus at AutoNation, and he was kind of telling me what AutoNation was doing, and that story. And that's where I met Marcus
Hmm.
then. And I had no intention, I didn't even know what the RV business was to speak of. I'd been in the radio business and sold cars. And he basically told me at the time, Camping World was I mean, just a speck. And he kind of laid out this plan, and I joined him
Was it?
280 stores later.
Yeah. I was going to ask how big were, again, for listeners, this kind of cool journey, you know, a guy, Marcus Lemonis, who many of you probably have heard of or seen, very popular in social media and entrepreneur, but he jumped from the auto business. I think he learned a lot, probably from one of the top, least progressive dealer groups in the nation, no pun intended, AutoNation. And then he just said, I think I can do this in RVs, and brought a bunch of great people like you, Randy, around himself, and grew from one little store up to, I mean, I think they're almost 200 now. But when you joined, how many did they have? And when you left, how many did they have?
It had, if I recall, it had less than 10 when I first got started, and he was, selling the idea. And then when I left, it was, 190-ish. Uh, they bought some, sold some, but he was very, very focused on markets. What markets do we need to be in? What do those markets look like? Uh, what are great RV markets? What are markets that match up to those dynamics that aren't great RV markets? And he was very, uh, very selective and very smart where he grabbed dealerships.
Yeah, it's interesting when someone comes with a new vision or perspective from one industry vertical. I mean, they are similar, right? But and just takes all those learnings which are commonplace in auto and drops them in this space. Now there's a couple other groups who y'all might have heard, Blue Compass around General RV, Campers In, that have kind of seen Marcus's growth or your guys' growth at Camping World. I see it peeking over your shoulder there behind on the hat. But yeah, to replicate it, but they're so far ahead of everybody. I think, I mean, these are very general numbers. I want to say Camping World's like around 200 stores. Blue Compass, who's number two, is about 100. So just double the size. And it's interesting because I didn't know a ton about RV. We RV'd my whole life growing up, from, you know, pup tents to pop-up campers to my dad. I think I told you bought an old Winnebago that we restored, Randy, that made it from Glenview, Illinois down to Fort Myers and never came home because it got parked and sold down there. But so it's been in our family my whole lives. But there's never been a time in our history where we have this aging population, the ability to work from home, remote, with Starlink and all the rest, and the home costs. So people are actually now saying, hey, retirement folks, which we'll talk about in a second, because I want to hear your retirement journey a little bit. But they've downsized from actual homes into these, luxury RVs now. So it's an interesting time. Because people ask me a lot, Randy, and probably you too, like, what do you think is going to happen with the RV industry? I'm like, it may not grow as fast, but I don't think it's dropping down. You got just all the perfect storm for people wanting to live, mobile.
People want to camp, you know. They want to get out and they don't want to be stuck at home. I think an interesting sidebar on this is you mentioned Blue Compass. John Ferrando, who runs Blue Compass, is an AutoNation guy. And he and Marcus worked together at AutoNation. And then the late Chris Glenn, who is one of my great friends, he basically was the ops person at Blue Compass, and he and I worked together hand in hand at AutoNation. It's just an interesting little connection there. And I think John saw what Marcus was doing in the RV business and saying this might be a smart place to go. And Ferrando is a very smart guy, and he was the CFO, I believe, at AutoNation.
Yeah,
So
I tell you, I was at that RV breakfast yesterday, so I saw John. He was on a dealer panel, and who's really interesting. We'll see how this connects here in a second. Is the CEO of KOA, because she has some amazing. Her name's Toby O'Rourke. I'm going to try and get her on the channel, but the data that she has, because they have so many campgrounds and they have so much data behind it, behavioral data, like who's camping where and when and what are the days. So their night stays, Randy, is way down, but from COVID, right? It's leveled off a little bit. It dipped last year even further, but it's kind of plateaued. Um, but she said that the rates they're able to get now, because the experiences are a little higher. And so that was good news. But she said there's this weird dynamic of about 30% of RV owners that just have their RVs parked in their driveway. So her challenge to the whole group, there was 1,400 industry people there, was you got to figure out not how to get new people in the business. You got to figure out how to get that 30% who already own, and it was some massive number, Randy, back engaged, so that they use their RVs and then they use them so much that they want to upgrade them, right, to buy new ones, and or because there's a lot of it when you're out and about, and then that word of mouth, like, hey, Carl and Beth are really loving it. Randy and your wife, you should come out. You know what I mean? A lot of that is word of mouth stuff and just experiential nostalgia. So it was interesting data. If I can get a copy of it, I'll send it to you because I just thought it was intriguing. But
I see that.
but so you worked for Camping World for how many years?
20.
20 years. Wow, seems long. And you've been gone from there.
About less than a year, a little bit less than a year. Yeah, maybe about a year.
Okay.
And,
So tell
you
us what, because I got a bunch of friends that are in this early buyout, whatever. What's retirement like?
it's not as fun as you would think. I'm enjoying it to the extent that I have grandchildren that live here and that live in St. Augustine where I am, and the opportunity to go to their games, and one plays basketball, and one's a really very good soccer player. In fact, he was supposed to go to Spain this summer and play on a under 16 team in Spain that they've got all canceled up. But I enjoy watching them play, and we pick them up from school every day and bring them here, and it's very enjoyable. And I'm also involved in a couple other things. Uh, I do a little bit of consulting uh, here and there, and then I'm involved in the church that we belong in here. I'm on the vestry and what's officially called a junior warden.
Mhm.
The Episcopal Church, they don't have presidents, vice presidents, and stuff. They have warden, senior warden, junior warden. I'm a junior warden, which I found out after I said I'd do it, is the person that's responsible for the properties.
Mm,
And which sounds okay until you realize that the church was founded in 1821, and the building is the main building downtown St. Augustine. There's always something, and so it's a little busy. And then we built a new church uh, west of St. Augustine, which is thriving now too. So that I'm involved in that as well. So I stay reasonably busy. Uh, I miss going to work. I mean, I miss being in a station in a dealership,
yeah.
where there's people around and there's stuff going on, and you hear people screaming and yelling, and I do miss that activity for sure.
Well, you had a pretty cool setup with, for those of us who work remote, it can be lonely, but Randy had a cool setup where his office was in one of the businesses. So it was in this like little secret tunnel, kind of back hidden away, but he could just step out and be in the mix at any minute. And then
Yeah.
you had your daughter right there too, which she also works for Camping World, which was also pretty cool. Not too far from the house. But one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about besides retirement, sounds like you're keeping busy with the kids, and that's great that you're there and the church. But um, one of the cool things that in my memory that was so neat was we met, and you're like, "Hey, let's go to lunch next door." We walked next door to the Ford
Ford's
restaurant
Garage.
deal, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm an
Yeah.
investor in this." I'm like, "What? What?" So how's you get some cool opportunities when you're in a position like you, public company, and that. So tell us about that. If that's fun, not fun, you're still enjoying that.
No. Yeah, I got next door to the dealership in St. Augustine is Bozard Ford Lincoln Mercury. And they built it, they built a new dealership, and part of it was room for a restaurant on the south end. And so there's a company out of gosh, I think it's Fort Myers or something called Ford's Garage. And they had one there, and they had met with the guys at Bozard, and who I had met because we had both worked for AutoNation. The guy that owned that was running the Beaux-Arts group at the time uh, had an office just down from me at AutoNation. So he walked over and says, "Hey, we're doing this restaurant here, and we've got some shares if you'd like to buy in." And so I talked it over with my wife, and we ended up buying into the one in St. Augustine, and we just bought into the one in Sanford, which
Hmm.
is north of Orlando. Then there's one in Clearwater that's coming up that we most likely will be have a share or two in that as well. And I can tell you, I get the reports every week, and it's remarkable how similar the numbers are between the Sanford store and the St. Augustine store. And it's been a real good thing for us. Uh, we've been in the one in St. Augustine now a couple of years. We've gotten our money back plus
Hmm.
on that. And then Sanford just opened up, and we just saw a little trickle this last week because we get dividends on
Yeah.
that. And it's been really good when you're not working and you don't have an income. When you see, go to the mailbox and you see something from Ford's Garage, it's always a good thing.
Yeah. That's cool to see too. Or I just looked it up. Sorry, I should have been more prepared. They have 34 locations now, which is nothing to, you know, I'd be proud of that. I mean, restaurant business, as you know, is tough from employees, but for those of us who are, we got a lot of car followers, I think, Randy, that watch us, a lot of my industry friends. But if you have not been to a Ford's Garage, first of all, it's so nostalgic. They're fun. They're really sports bars. I mean, I guess would be the category, right? Family
Yeah,
casual
yeah,
sports
family, a lot of TVs, and the decor is like an old garage.
garage.
I mean,
Yeah,
if you're a mechanic, there's a Model A hanging from the ceiling
yeah.
in St. Augustine. There's gas pumps all over, and the whole decor is like an old mechanic's shop.
Well, what I think what hit me right was it wasn't too loud, and it was reasonable, right? Good food, fast service, and
Good.
reasonable pricing, right? So that's hard to come by.
Yeah, the food's good.
Yeah,
You know, I
yeah.
I eat there.
No,
So
it is
food is
good.
good.
So are those so we had a couple of restaurant tours on about probably three or four, five, maybe even. I'll send you one of those episodes, Randy. Um, but the so is each one individually owned? Are they corporate owned? How does the system work if you can share? I don't know what you can share or not.
They're owned by a company out of I believe it's Tampa or Fort Lauderdale. I can't remember. And then they sell shares to fund openings and things like that. But it's the same restaurant group. I wish I could remember the names, like Gerhardt or something like
Hmm.
that restaurant group. And you know, they're the corporate entity that hires and manages the facilities.
Yeah, that's the tough part is, as you know from your years at Camping World, it's just the employees, right? Just replacing them, keeping them happy, keeping them satisfied, keeping them engaged. That's really the tough part of all these businesses. Um,
Especially when you get the hours, when
mhm.
you're open at 11 o'clock for lunch and then you're there till, you know, you become basically a sports bar at night.
Yeah,
And so, you have to staff all those hours. And uh, the fun thing about this one here in St. Augustine is it's actually attached to the dealership. You walk out one door and you walk right into the stairs that take you to the corporate office at Beaux-Arts, and then the next door, which is 15 more feet, is right into the Ford store.
yeah.
And it's got a great look, and it's been a good thing for us.
Well, it's cool. You get to see the reports and kind of keep engaged in some business activity. And you and I talked about this before. My grandfather worked up until I think he was 88 when he stopped working, and he he spent 30, 40 years as an accountant. He would call it a bookkeeper, but was really an accountant in one industry in Chicago. And then he started volunteering at an orphanage, a children's home, as their bookkeeper. And this part I didn't tell you, Randy. He was there so much. He was there full time that they at some point they're like, "Hey, we think this is not legal. We can't have you volunteer 40 hours like a full." So they had to actually make him an employee and pay him like minimum wage or whatever, which he didn't need he appreciated it, but he did that for like 30 years. So, but the second he stopped keeping active and having a reason to get up every morning and all that other stuff, which you have a ton of that stuff, but it just we saw him kind of just slow down and he wasn't as engaged. And so I tell everybody, they're like, when are you going to retire? I'm like, I'm never retiring ever. That doesn't mean I'll work for pay, but I'm never retiring.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that too. I've got a routine that I do, and I've got goals every day. I'm going to get 10,000 steps today, every day. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I've got I had in the house that we own here. It had a storage room off the garage,
Mm.
and I put a gym in there,
Oh, nice.
and I've got the weight machines in there. I've got a whole setup with the 5 lift thing, and a rowing machine and a sit up machine, and I lift 3 days a week in a normal kind of. Uh, I'm not going to enter uh, any bodybuilding competitions, but I'm stronger than a 70-year-old should be, and and it
That's good.
I really enjoy it. I really
Well, when
enjoy
it's
it.
part of your, life growing up, I was a two sport athlete in college myself, and it's hard to kick it, especially if you're able to. Why give it up? It's something we enjoy. To me, it distracts me from the day to day mental stuff of just, worrying about this or that, and it's I say it like this: it's an accomplishment. When you hit your 10,000 steps, you're gonna be like, done, right? The rest of
Yep.
things in life, they never kind of end. Like my job here, as you know, your job at Camping World, you were never done. You might have finished tasks for the day, but the pressure of running a couple hundred dealerships, finance offices, and that never went away. It was 24/7. That's my job too. So
In all the time zones, when you've got that Western time zone and you're in the Eastern time zone, and it's it's 10 o'clock here, and it's 6 out there. But I enjoy it very much, and I'm kind of funny when it comes to lifting. I like to I like to lift by myself. And my wife, God bless her, she wants to come in, and she's very fit, and she wants to come in and do it at the same time. I just said, look, you got to let me do this by myself. I because I because I grunt and I swear, and it's it's very peaceful
yeah,
to if you and I don't know, I lift to failure.
ooh,
So
yeah,
I'll do curls, for example, with 20s, and go to failure. And that last one, and try not to pass out.
yeah,
But I think it's good for me. And
yeah.
the 10,000 steps certainly is good for your heart and good for everything else. But the lifting, I probably go harder than I should. But that's
No,
okay.
that's good. That's good. Well, Randy, we wrap these things up. And again, thank you for the journey and the catch up. But we wrap these shows up with a couple car questions because this thing was birthed during COVID. Nobody was working, and my whole brain is about cars because of 30 something years in here. So that was the birth of what drives you. But it's really morphed into more what drives you in life, what gets you up in the morning, whether it's steps or grandkids or clarity in your mind, keeping your mind active. So here's kind of our rapid fire questions, and then we'll end up with our words of wisdom from Mr. Randy. So what was your very first car that you owned?
63 Plymouth Valiant
Ooh,
with a slant six.
My friend had one of those. His was a Dart, but similar
Same
slant
thing.
six.
My grandfather was a mechanic, had his own shop, and so he would, you know, kept everything running for us, and he kind of spotted that car and said, "This would be a good one for you." It wasn't too fast, and you're not going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I had that '63 Plymouth Valiant, which morphed into a '59 Plymouth with a 361 four barrel.
Oh,
And it was loud and hang on a second. No, goodbye. And so I drove that all through high school and my senior year in college, I bought a Chrysler Cordoba
ooh,
and and it was
luxurious.
burgundy. Yeah, yeah, and then had that for the longest time.
All right. First car we got. What was your favorite car in all these years that you've owned, and especially being in the car business? So maybe let's not count the demos or that, but ones that you've owned. What was your favorite car so far?
That '59 Plymouth was pretty hot. It and it was fast and loud.
Yeah.
Um, I have to tell you, I've owned some really, really nice cars, but and when I started having kids, I kind of moved into the SUV kind of, and I really enjoyed. I had a Lincoln Nautilus
Ooh,
that I really liked, and my wife has a Lincoln Corsair that we've had for 4 or 5 years that we really like. But I like the first off, my favorite car is the one that's paid off, and
yeah.
and the vehicle that I'm driving right now, I really like. It's a '25 Ford Maverick,
Oh,
four-door pickup, and it's got a little uh, four-cylinder or a souped-up four, and I'm not going anywhere in it. I'm just going around town picking up kids and hauling
yeah.
stuff. But I like it very much. Very comfortable and it's kind of quick and I'm happy
Practical.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if no, we have no budget, no check, got no limit. What would be your dream car that you'd own?
I'd probably I'd probably go with a BMW uh, SUV
Oh,
if you make such a thing.
yeah.
I had a BMW for a while. I bought used and uh, drove it 185,000 miles, and it just never broke down. And I do like the BMWs. I like the Mercedes, but you're going to think I'm kind of nuts. But there's a Hyundai SUV that I think looks really good. It's Palisade,
Yeah.
and I think it's a great looking car and or vehicle. And what I like in it is the screen is all the way across the front dash on the driver's side. So it, there's a lot of information there all the way, and it's nice. It's nice. But like I said, my favorite car is the one that I'm probably driving, and I don't know anything on.
Yeah. That's a good one. We just paid off our second car, so we got two right now. And it's funny, Randy, how it's just I've always had not always, but um, I I like to work on my cars with my cousin, so I try and buy stuff that I know he can work on, Audis, Volkswagens, and such. But he just bought, so I don't think you're nuts on the Palisade because he just bought the sister to that, the Kia Telluride. And his story is, which I believe him because he's a mechanic, is that a lot of the Audi designers moved to Kia Hyundai, and that birthed those Palisade Tellurides. That's why they're so like different than the normal Kia Hyundais, and almost like the Q7s, Q5s, and all that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, well, they're a great looking vehicle.
Yeah, he loves his. All right, and then we'll wrap with this one. So again, thank you, Randy, for your time. I know it's a busy time and Memorial Day weekend here. But what would this is our words of wisdom? We call it our wow question. What would retired, wise, experienced Randy Rahe tell 18-year-old Randy Rahe that he wished he knew then?
Listen before you talk. Make sure you hear what's being said and work to understand what's being said before you pipe up and show your ignorance. Uh, I've always tried to listen and to see where the other person's coming from and to understand, understand what that is and what's the point they're trying to make and what's the end game. What are you trying to accomplish? Uh, that would be the most thing I tell my grandkids all the time. What did they just say? What did you just hear? Uh, and and figure out what it means to you, and then what are you going to do about it? So
Yeah, that's a good one. I always say, and I always appreciated about you as a customer, you would always let me finish. So you didn't interrupt. You would let me finish whatever my thought was or my excuse was or the problem was. And then there was like kind of this almost audible pause of, okay, here's what we're going to do, which I really appreciated because most of my customers, as you know, you guys are in these positions of power where you got to get stuff done because you got a million different things going on, and you just need stuff handled. But you, again, were one of my favorites just because you were like, okay, Carl, I know I know I'm not a tech guy. I'm not in control of the Cuddle platform or all that other stuff. I'm here like a quarterback, but you would listen first before you know, told me what to do. So that was good.
my father used to always say, "Do it right or do it over," and you can pick which
Yeah,
way you will go.
yeah, that's true. Well, my friend, thank you so much for jumping on. I know, I learned a lot, and I hope people are going to see, take some nuggets out of this, and see that you can, change careers midstream, be a good dad, be a good citizen, and kind of just, hey, reinvent yourself a couple, two, three times, and even when you're retired, keep having goals and dreams, and get up and keep moving, right? Keep driving. So.
I appreciate it. I hope that somebody gets something out of it.
Yeah,
So,
we will. We'll share it. I'll send you the link when we're done. And like I said on the phone the other day, next time I'm down, we're definitely going to go connect for maybe again at Ford's Garage or maybe at the gym. I do remember. I remember that there's a car museum by you, and I definitely want to hit that up too. So,
yep, yep. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
yep. Thanks, Randy. Have a good weekend.
All right. See you later.
Bye.